This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
We have the latest highlights from China's International Fair for Trade and Services. Sudan declares a 3-month state of emergency as floods kill more than 90 people. And South Africa steps up efforts to curb gender-based violence. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. I'm Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. Also coming up on the program. In business, delays and traffic snarl-ups hamper transport on the Kenya-Uganda border. And in sports, Cameroon, Italian 90 World Cup heroes to receive houses promised by President Paul Biya 30 years later. Welcome to the program. China's president says he supports the idea of a free trade zone in the capital. Xi Jinping made the announcement during this year's International Fair for Trade and Services. It aims to strengthen cooperation in the global service industry. The 6-day event covers everything from culture and tourism to 5G technology. Zhang Dan has more.
18,000 companies from nearly 150 countries and regions taking part in 4 summit forums and dozens of industry seminars. It comes as the world continues to fight the coronavirus pandemic, but President Xi said China was committed to enabling an economic recovery. He also lent his full support to the Chinese capital in setting up a pilot international free trade zone for the service sector.
It will enable Beijing to take bigger, bolder steps as a trailblazer and gain more experience that would be replicable and scalable. We will also support Beijing in setting up a pilot free trade zone characterizing scientific and technological innovation, opening up of the services sector and digital economy.
Xi also made 3 proposals to drive trade and services globally. First, that countries should work together to foster an open and inclusive environment for cooperation, adding that China would play its part. Second, to promote innovation, saying that China would work to better protect intellectual property rights and boost digital economy and sharing economy. And third, that countries should strive to break new ground for what he called win-win cooperation. Meanwhile, many world leaders addressed the summit remotely, lending their support to economic globalization and international cooperation.
We hope to continue to deepen relations with China. For the post-COVID recovery and development, we may consider integrating our information system and share best practices. This platform of cooperation can help boost development.
International cooperation and trade in services should be a key element of the policy agenda. We hope we can work together, building on the common lessons both China and UNCTAD can share on how services can leverage achieving the SDGs.
With the pandemic still devastating the global economy, many felt such an event could play a key part in the recovery effort.
The service industry plays an important role in today's global economy. I think this event will be highly praised by all countries that are working hard to aid the recovery of the global economy. And the results will also benefit the world.
So I think that this is a serious commitment, and I believe strongly that it's correct in trying to continue to link the global economy. Through not only the big economies, but also the linkages into the smaller emerging markets, developing economies as well.
And I think that's why this particular exhibition is very important, so that we're able to understand the needs of the market, the needs of the Chinese market, and the Chinese also market needs to appreciate what services are available within Kenya. And some of these services, as we've said, are not goods. They are basically intangible, but they basically provide an opportunity for people to earn their livelihoods and also for people to be able to contribute to the economy of the country.
Over 100,000 people have registered for the fair. The message from organizers is clear: don't shut doors, because cooperation and innovation can drive the global economic recovery effort. Zhang Dan, CGTN.
President Xi's speech at the opening ceremony was inspiring. As an e-commerce company, we're striving to transform ourselves into a technical service provider. We also hope that our technology can empower domestic and international companies to develop better. And the Service Trade Fair provides us opportunities to meet with foreign companies online and offline, which breaks the barrier of space. For example, some Spanish companies which cannot come to the fair have been able to visit our visual booth and have an online meeting with us.
Last night, President Xi Jinping put forward 3 suggestions and hopes. As a major force in China's pharmaceutical industry, we will be mindful of our social responsibilities. We will further increase the import of advanced technology and medical drugs from the world. And we will also promote our own products, like the COVID-19 vaccine we are currently developing, to people across the world, so as to benefit them as well.
Well, President Xi's speech has been followed closely by various leaders and has aroused heated discussions by players in different sectors in South Africa. Let's listen to what they had to say.
Under very difficult circumstances, China still held the trade fair. I think it's very important for the global economy, as I pointed out. China is a major engine, being the second largest global economy. The trade fair impacts on the global economy in a positive way. And the outcome of that trade fair, as we have seen, has been very positive. And I think it also reinforces the value of multilateralism and an interdependent global economy, and China being part of that and playing a crucial role to stimulate growth again. We need new green shoots, and China is producing those green shoots, and events such as these are critical in terms of reigniting the global economy for us all to start having at least hope that despite the pain that we are experiencing economically as a result of COVID, that we have seen there are green shoots, and there's hope that the world economy can rebound if we work collectively. And actions such as the trade fair is an important action in promoting such growth.
I think as much as China needs the world needs China. And despite worries around COVID that globalization will be coming to an end and that protectionism will rise strongly, I don't believe that is the case. I think we are firmly into this era of globalization, interlinkages between countries. Countries need each other, countries need trade in goods, but especially in services. So I think that this is a serious commitment, and I believe strongly that it's correct in trying to continue to link the global economy through not only the big economies, but also the linkages into the smaller emerging markets, developing economies as well.
Meanwhile, in Kenya, the chief executive officer of the country's export promotion and branding agency says Kenya and China have great potential for cooperation in the service sector field. Kenya looks forward to participating in the International Fair for Trade in Services to promote its economic recovery in the context of COVID-19.
China is one of our top trading partners with Kenya. And I would say that within the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency export strategy, that China as a country is among our 22 priority markets that we have established, and we want to engage in terms of export market related activities in this particular financial year. It's against that context that we're going to express that our participation in the China International Fair for Trade in Services is giving us an introduction to an area as a country which we have not paid attention to. We have been focusing on export of goods, and sometimes goods are hindered by the logistical challenges that are there.
Vodacom South Africa has announced a groundbreaking tech partnership with China's Alipay. The joint venture will provide inclusive mobile solutions to South African consumers and merchants, especially small businesses, through innovative digital technologies. CGTN's Sumitra Naidu has more from Johannesburg.
From ordering takeaways, booking an e-hailing service to streaming music, it's a one-stop shop in the palm of your hand.
Essentially what would be is a single platform for buyers and sellers to come together with the underlying technology that would assist in making those transactions seamless. I think Vodacom is trying to achieve something unique and different and outside the traditional telco space. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for them, considering that people have gotten used to the fact that I can buy things online.
Vodacom is not new in this space. 4 years ago, they pulled the plug on M-Pesa in South Africa.
With M-Pesa, they didn't have the critical mass to make that work or make it feasible for Vodacom. So again, I think if you're looking at where we are in the current economy, if you're looking at where we are with the global pandemic, it does give a very good opportunity for people being used to the fact that they can use technology to purchase things. So I think the scene is set a little bit differently to the previous time. And also I think the technology that they're proposing now and the partnerships they've made makes a very big difference.
Alipay has a long history of success in various countries across the globe. More than 1.2 billion consumers have used the platform to date.
Alipay is essentially an e-wallet, but it does allow you to essentially make purchases by using your phone instead of a traditional card. I think if you're looking at the technology in this space, the company that they've partnered with would be ahead of the technology curve. They've spent a lot of time and energy into this, and I think there wouldn't be a better partnership for Vodacom to make if they want to get to market as quickly as possible.
The mobile payment platform will potentially provide disserviced small and medium enterprises access to financial services solutions, not only for their customers, but their suppliers too.
They don't have to go draw money, or they don't have to tap on a device that they're not certain about. If there can be a trusted app where I can go and just make my payment from the app, and I trust that I will go to any vendor that allows me to purchase using that method.
Not only will you have the ability to easily and affordably transact, you'll also be able to track your monthly spend with your favorite retailer, restaurant, or with people. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
To the Democratic Republic of Congo, where dozens of armed men who had stormed Bunaya, the capital of DR Congo's northeastern Ituri province, have left the town. According to the region's governor, Jean Bamanisa, the men were from the Cooperative for the Development of Congo, an armed group accused of ethnic attacks and killing more than 1,000 civilians since December 2017. They were demanding the release of jailed militia fighters. Security forces later peacefully got them to leave after hours of negotiations. Several militia and rebel groups have been staging attacks in the region. This was the first time in recent years that they had entered a major city in the Great Lakes area bordering Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi. Right now, for more on that story, we're now joined live by Chris Ochamringa. He joins us from Kinshasa. Chris, thank you for joining us. As we just reported, the rebels were evicted from the area around the prison. Tell us more about that. Also, there were also conflicting reports on why exactly the rebels entered the town in the first place. Can you clarify that?
Yes, so I spoke to the mayor of Bunia City, where the rebels entered on Friday, and he said that there were about 100 of them who entered the city, and their main reason was to demand the release of their fellow fighters who were detained in the prison in Bunia. These fighters of the Cooperative for the Development of Congo are part of a splinter group that decided to stop fighting. And so one of the demands that they made to the government was that, they want their colleagues who have been detained to be released. The government promised to get them other sources of livelihood and also start the process of disbanding the group. And so they were supposed to be based in a certain transit center. But it has taken some time because the government didn't have all the logistics to implement what they agreed with them. And so these people were concerned that they were afraid that the government wasn't keeping its word. And that's why they entered the city to demand the release of their comrades who were detained. It's a very complicated situation, but the local leaders are saying that there was no fighting. The people are out of the area right now.
And Chris, some elements within the rebel group agreed to a ceasefire in March, but the group has since fragmented into several factions. How is that now going to affect talks of a truce going forward?
it will certainly complicate, the efforts to have a truce, because the members of Codeco, it's one of the most notorious militias in the area. Like you mentioned earlier, about 1,000 people have been killed since 2017, and they have created a lot of rivalry. This group is from a tribe known as Lendu. They are farmers, and they've had a long rivalry with a group known as the Hema and other ethnic groups in the area. So what is happening right now is that these groups that have lost their loved ones have also formed militia groups to protect themselves. And their mission is to avenge the deaths of their loved ones. There are groups like Zaire, Chini ya Kilima, and a number of others, that are trying to organize themselves, to start attacking the Lendu people. And so the government says it's going to beef up its presence in Bunya, and they're going to work along with UN peacekeepers to try and ensure that there's no conflict that happens, because people there are really sick and tired of this conflict that has happened for very many years. In 1999, there was a conflict in that area that sucked countries like Uganda and Rwanda, supporting different groups, and millions of people were killed. And so the local leaders are just hoping that this time now they'll find a lasting solution, come up with some concrete plans to give people some other sources of livelihood, or integrate some of the members of Codeco into the national army, so that there's no more fighting, because that area is an important area. It has a lot of gold, it has a lot of timber, and there's a lot of trade between the neighboring countries. And some people have been saying that there are some politicians who are creating they're destabilizing the area, so that they can take some of those minerals without paying taxes, and all sorts of allegations being thrown back and forth. But the local leaders are saying they're going to do everything to ensure that there's peace in Bunya and in Turi province as a whole.
All right, Chris, thank you very much for that. CGTN's Chris Ochamringa joining us live there from Kinshasa. Now, Sudan's Security and Defense Council has declared a national state of emergency for 3 months due to floods. Floods in the country have killed over 90 people this year and have inflicted damage on more than 500,000 people, causing total and partial collapse of more than 100,000 homes. The Sudanese Minister of Labor and Social Development, Lina El Sheikh, says the rates of floods and rain for this year has exceeded the records set during the years 1946 and 1988, with expectations of continued rising indicators. Meanwhile, in South Sudan, the country's security situation keeps improving. Due to this, the UN is withdrawing troops from some sites used for protecting civilians. Astatal has more.
The UN mission in South Sudan has started withdrawing troops from its protection of civilian sites. The POC sites were set up to give citizens a safe place to flee to when civil war broke out in 2013.
POC sites were set up to protect people in imminent physical danger. They did so for many ethnicities and for many years, but today many people are staying there so they can access services.
Things are now relatively safe. Those living in the POC sites now feel safe enough to go to work, school, or the market.
That has occurred because we assess that any threats that may have existed in the past are no longer in existence today. Importantly, withdrawing from these sites means that those troops who were occupied at the POCs can be redeployed to hotspots where people's lives are in immediate danger, like in Jonglei.
Those living in POC sites where troops are being withdrawn will not be forced to leave.
Nobody will be pushed out or asked to leave when UNMISS withdraws, and humanitarian services will continue. I want to make and emphasise those points. It's just that the sites will no longer be under our jurisdiction, but will be, as I said, IDP sites like so many other IDP sites across the country. And it'll be the government's responsibility to find other land for these people to settle, or to help them return to their homes, or assist them, or assist those whose houses are occupied by others.
South Sudan's National Police Service will be responsible for maintaining law and order in the future. Criminal activity in POC sites is already being reported to local police in War, Bor, and Juba. Astatal, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live. Here's what's coming up after this short break. Teen pregnancies and marriages on the rise in Malawi as the country battles the COVID-19 pandemic. And South Sudan inaugurates a cancer screening center in Juba.
Xinjiang, a crossroads of Asia and a trade hub on the ancient Silk Road. A sixth of China's territory, it's now home to 25 million people of different ethnicities. In this series, CGTN explores the length and breadth of this geographically and ethnically diverse region. For 4 weeks, we'll bring our 5,000-mile journey to you live. Join us as we travel through history, document modern-day Xinjiang, and reveal its natural beauty and discover what makes the region so distinctive. Amazing Xinjiang on CGTN.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us on Africa Live. Let's take you to South Africa now, where the country's government is stepping up its efforts to deal with the scourge of gender-based violence. President Cyril Ramaphosa hosted a virtual national men's dialogue in efforts to end gender-based violence and femicide. At the event, Ramaphosa announced that his government has begun to introduce harsher minimum sentences for alleged perpetrators. CGTN's Yoli Sanjamela with more.
The National Men's Dialogue is an initiative of the governing African National Congress's Working Committee and civil society. Participants have been drawn from all walks of life. The dialogue is an initiative by the party to tackle issues faced by ordinary South Africans on a daily basis. It was held under the theme Men as Partners, Generation Equality. At this gathering, President Cyril Ramaphosa admitted that currently government is not doing nearly enough to end violence against women and children.
We need to do much more and better to effectively deal with gender-based violence and femicide. Much as we've come up with a national strategic plan that was drafted by the women of our country, who took up the cudgels of fighting against the scourge, much as we've got that strategic plan, much more needs to be done. Much as we set aside last year 1.6 billion and will set aside even more, much more needs to be done.
Gender-based violence in South Africa continues to increase. It's a distressing issue for the government and society at large. Ordinary members of the society also formed part of this dialogue and contributed to the propositions.
We must provide greater economic opportunities for women, and we must inform people of their rights. Programs that reach out to men and change societal beliefs and attitudes that permit exploitative behavior are urgently required.
President Ramaphosa also announced here that his government is effecting new stringent laws to help end violence against women and children.
These are the Domestic Violence Amendment Bill, which, among other things, facilitates the obtaining of protection orders and makes the consequences of contravening a protection order much harsher. The Criminal Law, which is the Sexual Offences and Related Matters Bill, and the Criminal and Related Matters Amendment Bill aim, amongst other things, to tighten bail conditions for alleged perpetrators and provide for harsher minimum sentences.
In this forum, the governing ANC made a call to men in the country to be part of a generation that will achieve gender equality and end gender-based violence. Yuli Sanjamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
In Malawi, unwanted pregnancies and marriages are on the rise amid the coronavirus pandemic. Research shows that reproductive health services have taken a backseat as national health services shift their focus to caring for people with COVID-19. The The lack of access to sexual and reproductive health services has predisposed girls to unprotected sex, which could lead to higher numbers of pregnancies.
In the southern district of Falombe in Malawi, 17-year-old Eliza Majuri is counting weeks before she delivers her first baby. She was lured into a relationship with a married man in March. Poverty, she says, drove her to this situation.
At the time he proposed, he committed to marry me if I got pregnant and that we would be living together. At the time, I did not know he was married already. I only got to know about it while I was already pregnant. That is why he spends much time with his wife at home. So I just accepted the situation because there was nothing else I could do.
Eliza was very respectful to everyone, both young and the old. She also used to do well in school. When she got pregnant, I got so angry, remembering how I struggled to raise her. I resolved to chase her to her husband's because I did not expect this from her.
Eliza is one of thousands of teenagers who have fallen pregnant across Malawi between March and June 2020. Authorities directly link the problem to the coronavirus pandemic.
The numbers have gone up because at the same time last year, the teenage pregnancy rate was at, the percentage was at 29%. That is 29 out of every 100 pregnancies were in young ones between the ages of 10 and 19. And if you look at the same period this year, 2020, that has increased to 35%, which means that out of every 100 pregnancies, 35 are between the ages of 10 and 19.
We believe that there could be disruptions because the people that are supposed to be providing these sexual reproductive health services for young people are now occupied to now be able to manage COVID-19 cases if at all they present themselves at the health centers. So we're actually thinking that there is a disruption of these services.
The problem has led to many of the pregnant teens being pushed into early marriages, and Malawi is not alone. Our United Populations Fund research, released in April, predicted that globally there could be 7 million unintended pregnancies during the COVID-19 pandemic. Chaumwono, CGTN.
South Sudan has inaugurated a cancer screening center at the country's main medical referral facility, the Juba Teaching Hospital. It was constructed and equipped by the Chinese government, CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
South Sudan's health ministry says this cervical cancer screening center is the first of its kind in the East African country, and Beijing is pledging more support to help Juba improve its fragile health sector.
Today's establishment of the cervical disease center is a new start for our future cooperation in the health service sector.
China has provided material and technical support to South Sudan to help it deal with health-related challenges. South Sudan has one of the most underdeveloped health infrastructures in the world, according to the World Health Organization.
We are very pleased today that we have moved a step together with our partners from China that we can address everybody's problem, especially the females, those who are able to go abroad or those who are not able in Juba teaching hospitals.
The Chinese government says it spent $33 million to fund the modernization and expansion of health facilities at Juba Teaching Hospital. The World Health Organization and Canada are also building health facilities across South Sudan. China's latest health assistance for South Sudan also includes 9 batches of anti-COVID-19 medical supplies and a team of experts to help fight the pandemic. Beijing will also train South Sudanese medical personnel on the use of equipment at the Cervical Cancer Screening Center. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Let's shift our focus to Kenya now, where the lakes in the Rift Valley continue to swell due to heavy rainfall in the area. The fresh waters of Lake Baringo seem to be merging with the alkaline waters of Lake Bogoria nearby. Kenyans now worry that an ecological disaster is looming, which could affect thousands of people and animals. Tuli Shabalala has that story.
These are the fresh waters of Kenya's Lake Baringo. It hosts birds, fish, hippos and crocodiles and provides drinking water for tens of thousands of people. But due to heavy rainfall, geothermal activities and the slitting up of lakes in the Rift Valley, the waters have been increasing.
All my life started from here. It is quite disgusting to see a place you call home for most of your time going. When it started, we thought it would come. But as usual, it's difficult to move to a new place because this is a wonderful and amazing place to be. The people around are amazing. The environment is amazing. Like guys from Nairobi could come, have their small Mombasa down here. But this is now gone. This has been a home for over 400 species of birds. Wildlife, it's amazing.
The nearby Bogoria Lake is also affected. Its alkaline waters, which are unfit for human consumption, are seemingly merging with the waters of Lake Bogoria. The distance between the two lakes has halved. Lodges and hotels in the region have been pushed out of business. The flooding is also driving farmers from their land and residents from their homes.
When the rain started, we did not expect the water to rise this much and get to our farms. I have lost my grass farm, which was my main source of income, and lost my homestead too. I now have to start all over at new grounds. For now, I live with my son close by, but even there we think water will get to us.
The farms have been submerged. Even here at the headquarters of Rai Trust, the farms are flooded. So this has brought about many challenges because the farmers are not benefiting from their farms.
According to conservationists, Lake Baringo has expanded 60% to 270 square kilometers in the last 7 years, while Lake Bogoria has swollen by a quarter to 43 square kilometers.
We do have a solution because to the north of us, there is a low point in the geographic structure, which could easily have a canal cut through and release some of this excess water, which would in fact be a very good thing for the people downstream, as it were, because they have no water.
Government has been pleading with locals to move to higher grounds. Experts have proposed drilling a tunnel to drain the water, as well as putting up dikes to prevent the lakes from merging. Tuli Shabalala, CGTN.
And here's what's coming up on the business. Delays and traffic snarl-ups hamper transport on the Kenya-Uganda border.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues for taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome to Africa Live Biz. Now, the Ugandan government has reversed its earlier decision to conduct free COVID-19 tests for truck drivers at its border points. The new development has caused a traffic snarl-up at the border points, with one queue leading to the Busia Customs Clearance Post stretching over 20 kilometers inside Kenya as drivers await clearance. CGTN's Nick Mudimba is in Busia and now brings us the latest.
I'm right here at the Busia one-stop border post, and things are not as usual. As you can see, traffic snarl up from truck drivers has gone all the way to 40 kilometers on the Kenyan side. Reason still not clear, but so many residents from Busia town are saying that the reagents is a problem. But again, drivers from the Kenyan side are told that they will be actually have to pay $65 for them to be tested, and on the other side of the Kenyan side, of course, they have been tested for free.
In Uganda, they have started asking for money. Drivers coming from the Uganda side are testing in Kenya, but for us lining up to enter Uganda, we are charged to test when we go in. So the queue will still be longer because the trucks are still coming and the doctors are testing very few.
We don't have peace. We're afraid in our town. They should have taken these trucks outside town.
Behind me are trucks that have gone all the way 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers in the Kenyan side. And the drivers are crying for that they've had to spend so much money just being here for the last 2 months, all in the name of being tested twice. The Kenyan side, they're tested for free, but the Ugandan side, it's a bit hectic because now they have to part, as I said earlier, with the $65. Now, many of them have to actually seek shelter from the neighboring houses, have to actually shower from the neighboring houses also, and food has been a problem. And the residents here have been so courteous and helped them with food in this situation. The families, according to many drivers, are saying that they're worried about the well-being, the fact that also they've been on the road for close to 2 months. For CGTN, I'm Nick Mudimba at the Busia-Uganda border.
Meanwhile, public transport plays a key role in keeping Nairobi's economy moving. That's why privately owned minibuses, also known as matatus, are essential for many people. But observing regulations introduced to curb the spread of the coronavirus has proved to be challenging for the matatu sector workers. CGTN's Tuli Shabalala has that story.
Evans Murevi is a bus conductor in the bustling streets of Nairobi. He dances and performs acrobatic stunts to entertain customers and to attract more. Now that it's back to business and matatus are ferrying commuters from place to place again, it's up to the bus conductors to ensure measures to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 virus are observed.
I have to sanitize my hands to protect myself. Before I begin my shift, I have to sanitize all the handles in the matatu. I have to put on a mask at all times because some customers may refuse to board the matatu if I lack one.
Enforcing the rules comes with its own challenges.
We've tried to sanitize people, we scan the temperature as the passengers board the vehicles. But the challenge comes here when some passengers ignore, they don't accept, they don't wear the mask, so that's been a challenge.
In a bid to ensure that social distancing is observed inside the matatus, the government proposed the reduction of the carrying capacity by half. A seat that would formerly carry 2 people is now occupied by only 1 passenger.
We used to carry a capacity of 32 passengers. But for now, it's reduced to 15 passengers according to distance, social distancing. And this has caused us loss. Plus the passengers too are suffering because of the fare charge that we have a little bit increased.
The restrictions have significantly affected the revenues earned by matatu owners. Their operating hours were also reduced due to a curfew that the government imposed. The matatu operators also have to cover the extra expenses of buying hand and surface sanitizers. But the Kenyan government has warned operators against increasing bus fares, so as to cushion commuters who are already facing economic hardships due to the pandemic. Tuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Zimbabwe's tourism sector is fully reopened after months of closure owing to the COVID-19 pandemic. It is hoped that the resumption will help revive the deteriorating economy in the South African country. CGTN's Wanja Mungai has that story.
The tourism and hospitality industry in Zimbabwe had been thriving before COVID-19 setting mid-March. Now, with the country recording more cases, travelers and safari junkies are few and far in between. This has led to a projection that the industry will contract by 7.4% in 2020. This has prompted the government to reopen the sector despite the pandemic.
The resilience of the sector has been tested to the limit over the last 6 months. It therefore becomes a very welcome decision that Cabinet has allowed all tourism activities that had remained shut down as part of the measures to contain the corona pandemic to now resume full operations.
The pandemic has revolutionized industries, and players are adapting to the new normal.
As we open now, we need to rethink about our pricing, we need to rethink about our cost structures, we need to rethink about what inputs we have into the business and how we can be more efficient. Because if we carry on the way that we did prior to the COVID-19, I think we'll suffer even greater losses going forward.
Authorities are also appealing to the government for funds to manage elephant populations.
If you go now and move around where our wildlife has not been disturbed, which is really the major drawcard in this country, the wildlife is thriving, it's doing so well. The number of deaths, if you hear, which are being reported, I can expressly confirm to you that most of those things are to do with the ecological imbalance in terms of the expansion of our wildlife without necessarily having conservation methods where we can control and not end up losing the habitat.
With climate change, heat waves are a looming danger for the elephants. They say funding would help save the Big Five member from such environmental shocks. Wanja Mungai, CGTN.
Ghanaian President Nana Akuffo Addo has offered assurances that his government would consider resolutions reached at a meeting between Nigerian and Ghanaian lawmakers. Part of the resolutions include the amendment of a Ghanaian law that makes it compulsory for foreigners to have a capital base of an estimated $1 million to operate businesses in the West African country. Akuffo Addo gave the assurance when the Speaker of the Ghanaian Parliament led his Nigerian counterpart on a courtesy visit in Ghana's capital, Accra. The property market in South Africa is set for a strong rebound after the slump caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent lockdown. With interest rates also at record lows, this combination of factors has made it a buyer's market, and first-time homeowners are piling in. Sumitra Naidu picks up the story.
South Africa's hard lockdown left most property owners scrambling to pay their mortgages. Payment holidays helped, but most banks ended their relief period at the end of August.
Current environment, as you can imagine, property companies are under a lot of pressure. So there's a big focus to reduce gearing or debt. And there's two ways for them to do that. Is either you pay less dividends or you sell assets. We can expect declines of between 10 and 20% in asset values. And that will be very, very beneficial from a buyer's market.
The hard lockdown and the economic impacts thereof pushed the Reserve Bank to cut rates to historical lows. First-time buyers and investors are grabbing the opportunity to get in now.
Talking to the house price index currently in South Africa from a residential point of view, we are seeing it at its historical lows. So it's very supportive from a buyer in the current environment.
So now we're at a point where it's much cheaper to finance your bond, to finance any type of loan that you have. So there's a lot of incentive for people who do have the money or do have access to the money or the financing to go purchase a home, because that loan is going to be much cheaper than it was in January.
Some of the banks say they've seen a surge in bond applications, while estate agents are enjoying record sales.
In July and August, Remax hit record months. So in July was the first month where we sold the most property or most homes that we've ever sold in the history of the company. And then literally a month later, we did 40% more than that month. So it's a little bit inexplicable, but I guess some of the reasons that I've given are interest rates that are low, pent-up demand.
Those who have the cash, those who can enter the market, I think that this will offer you an opportunity to enter the property market, which you may have found more difficult in the past.
There certainly is a rush to get into the market now while rates are low, but also because it's not sustainable. Interest rates will eventually start rising again. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Thanks for staying with us on Africa Live. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
the greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Now, on our continuing CGTN Digital Safari series, we take a look at the wildebeest migration in Kenya's Masai Mara. We then head over to South Africa for some more wildlife viewing.
Yesterday on CGTN's Digital Safari. In the Masai Mara, the grassy plains echoed with the sound of the wildebeest, zebra and topi making their way towards the banks. The abundance of crossing points caused confusion. But after some contemplation, the brave leapt into the river. Despite the danger that was quite visibly lurking atop the surface. Further down the river, a calmer entry to the water was seen, as two hippos made their way back in after a night of grazing. In the Owino Pride's territory, the lionesses were desperate for a morning meal. Unfortunately, their choice of prey was way too alert for their triangular strategy. Meanwhile, in South Africa, the atmosphere was calmer. In Pride Lands, a lioness was seen looking for breakfast. And in Pinda, the young male lions played around with a rock at the waterhole. In what looked to be a routine practice of perfecting their hunting skills. All the while patiently waiting for a meal to be brought their way. In the Lowveld, we were excited by the sight of Tingana, the Duke of Djuma. This male leopard has reigned over the area for a few years now, but true to his name, he hid in the long grasses, giving us only a few moments to really see his impeccably aging stature. In Gala, a female leopard stood tall in a tree as she devoured her impala breakfast. Join us every day at 4:30 GMT on CGTN digital platforms for your very own virtual safari through the African wild.
And here's what's coming up in the sports.